Yes, guys, welcome back to the Spurs-related YouTube channel. I'm on my own today. James isn't here, but the show must go on. There's been a lot of news in the last 24 hours, plus we played two games, which I'm not really going to get into today, but me and James will be back with you at some point to talk about those two games and dissect them properly. But the bad news we've kind of got to get into straight away is the fact that Morgan Gibbs-White is staying at Nottingham Forest, as per Fabrizio Romano, and officially Nottingham Forest last night. Morgan Gibbs-White signed a new contract at Forest until June 2028, which is a one-year extension from his current deal, which is set to end in 27. The deal is now off with Tottenham after everything had been agreed, medical, it was all booked. Forest obviously furious with legal action and prepared right after the Spurs approach. Gibbs-White accepts to stay at Forest this summer. Now, this has obviously been something that's dragged on for, I think it's 2.5 weeks now, something that we are growing and have been growing disappointed with. And it's a big problem for Tottenham now and for Daniel Levy. They have to sort this out. They have to find a replacement. They have to find someone that Thomas Frank wants, that they want, that they can get. And they have to do it quickly because Spurs go on tour, I think it's this evening. So they leave, I think, at 4:00 this evening. So they have to get on with things. Whoever they get now is probably not going to be on a tour because they spent 2 weeks deciding whether to sack the manager in Ange. They spent 2 weeks letting Thomas Frank to see if he wanted his players. And then they spent 2.5 weeks now on Morgan Gibbs-White not to get him. So all we have on the 27th of July is Mohamed Kudus as a new face. And then Matisse Tell, who we already had. I mean, I know it's been made permanent, but he's not fresh blood into the team, which you need. And Kota Takaya, who probably isn't going to get much game time this season. So thus far, despite all the talks of investment and positivity surrounding Tottenham, certainly on I think it was the 10th of July when the Gibbs-White story broke 17 days ago, we're all very excited. It was all very positive, a lot of investment talks, and it has gone very, very quiet since then. So it's really important now that Spurs get something done. In terms of Gibbs-White's side of the story, we all got the impression he wants to come to Tottenham. I imagine that Nottingham Forest have offered him a boatload of cash to stay. I don't know what he was on before, but I reckon we could be looking at close to 200 grand a week to stay for another year. I imagine this new contract is probably going to have a release clause in it next year, which will probably equate to something a lot more than £60 million, probably 75, 80 plus. And so realistically, he's still going to leave the club next year. There's no way he doesn't. Whether or not it's Tottenham is a completely different argument. I imagine it won't be. I imagine it'll be Manchester City or Manchester United or someone like that that will take him because I don't think we'll pay the added money at probably what will be 80, 90 million. And we might also not need him at that point as well. We might have someone that comes in this summer and ends up being a lot better than maybe Gibbs-White could have ever been. That sounds like I'm coping and I am disappointed. I am really disappointed because Gibbs-White was someone that I was very excited about coming into this team and making an impact. And I think we've seen, certainly in those two games yesterday against Wycombe and Luton, that someone of Gibbs-White's talent and ability would have been really, really needed and probably would be the difference maker in those sorts of games. So if we have a look, I mean, the important thing is now to have a look at who comes in instead, because Spurs have to do business. As I say, they've spent 30 on Tell, 5 on Takai, and 55 on Mohamed Kudus. There's £90 million they've spent so far. Obviously, Danso money as well. But if they want to compete, I mean, Arsenal have signed 6 players. Liverpool are signing the world currently, and they're making some great signings. Chelsea, obviously, do most years now under Todd Bowley, but they're doing some great business. Manchester City have signed a lot of players. Even Manchester United have got Cunha and Mbeumo in. So Spurs have got to go and get some more. They are still a long way off. We're a team that I don't think we have the squad of a team that finished 17th. But at the end of the day, we finished 17th. They need some fresh blood. They need some improvement. And there's no reason with improvement and with fresh blood that they can't go on and compete to get back into the Champions League the following year. But yeah, so it's really important now that Spurs go and find that replacement, which could well end up being, as Paul O'Keefe reported the other day, Harvey Elliot. He's on a list of potential targets if Tottenham can't get Morgan Gibbs-White. I think he's a different sort of player to Gibbs-White. This idea suggests that the idea to me was to play Gibbs-White in the 10, which I don't think would have always been the case. Having seen the double pivot at times, and I think he would have played in the 10, but having seen the double pivot and what we've seen in the last 3 games in the last week of Tottenham, Thomas Frank's sort of new era. I think that Gibbs-White would have been deployed probably in that middle two. But I think he would have also been used as a 10. I think he can do both roles very well, and we've seen that in Nottingham Forest. But with him off the table, Harvey Elliott is one that I think is a really top player. I think he's a great talent. He's still only young. Probably doesn't get the game time he wants at Liverpool, and that is solely because they have top players. They have great players in every position. And so they bought him from Fulham when he was very, very young. People will question the attitude and people will question his personality, which is totally fair. And I am probably in that camp of people that do so, solely because, you know, we've seen a lot, we've heard a lot over the years, and in what has been so far quite a short career. I mean, I mentioned it recently that he had sort of a bit of a dispute with Richarlison as well at the back end of last season when they were about to win the title, and so he's not always one that is in the good books. But that's not to say that we should necessarily turn him down for that reason. If Thomas Frank, he's obviously got his policy where he doesn't want, he wants no D heads, and that he is very, very, keen on and sticks by. And so Kudus obviously came in, and there was talk, same sort of thing, attitude, this and that. But that hasn't seemed to have been a problem so far. It's obviously very early days, but that hasn't seemed to be a problem. Thomas Frank was okay with that. And so if Thomas Frank thinks he can get a tune out of Harvey Elliott, then that's very exciting. So I think he can be a really top player. I'm not sure that he is that double pivot role like Gibbs-White. I'm not sure he's as good as Gibbs-White either. He's obviously younger, but I'm not sure he's at that level yet. But he would give you still experience of playing at the top level because he's played in the top level in the Champions League and the Premier League for Liverpool. He's obviously a superb talent. And so it would be an exciting one for the right money. For the right money, it would be quite an exciting deal. Whether or not it happens to the right money is a different argument. I mean, it's probably going to end up being, I reckon, probably 50 to 60 million pounds. And at that point, I'm not convinced he is the one that I would want. And that is solely because of this man, who you can probably get for around the same sort of price at, I would say, between 60 to 65 million. Obviously, nothing's happened with Eze as of now, the 27th of July. Rumours still linking him to Tottenham, to Arsenal, to most clubs really at the top of the Premier League that are competing to be up there, because he's a top player. He's a great player. He's and he would make a difference. He would make a difference to Tottenham. I mean, I saw him obviously when we were quite poor in the league for most of the season, but at the back end of the season we played at home to Crystal Palace and we lost 2-0. I mean, it could have been about 16-0, but he was utterly superb, like really, really good. Obviously, we were a slightly weaker side that we put out, and we were obviously focusing on Europe anyway. But they were focusing on their cup final a week later, and yeah, he came there with a swagger, and he was just the best player on the pitch by an absolute country mile. So for the right money, Eze would be really exciting. I'd love to get him in at Tottenham. I think he's probably, again, slightly further forward than Gibbs-White, but can also play that double pivot if you had to use him there. I'm not saying I would. I think Gibbs-White suits that a lot more. Eze can be used off the left as a 10. Certainly, if Sonny goes as well, I think Eze is one that they will look to go for. Even if it's if it's only £60 million as well. I mean, they've obviously got that money there, having paid for Gibbs-White. Whether or not we see that money ever again is a completely different argument. I imagine we will. I'm hoping we will. But we've known many a time in the history of Tottenham where we've bid for someone, it's not happened, and we've not seen that money again. We saw it with Mark Gahey in January on deadline day. They apparently bid 70 million for Mark Gahey at like 6 a.m. on deadline day. Out of nowhere, confused the clubs. Confused Crystal Palace. It confused Mark Gahey. It confused his agent, and it confused every single fan, I think. But I think we all kind of knew that it was not going to happen. And this was just a ploy of Tottenham to say, we tried. And so the worry is that is similar with Gibbs-White. I don't think it will be. I hope it won't be. But as I say, we go on tour today. Tottenham have got to get some business done. They are running out of time, really. They've got, I want to say it's 16, 17 days until the Super Cup. and it's just under 3 weeks until Burnley at home. And so they've got to get players in. They have to get players in, have to get fresh blood in the team, some new faces that can make an impact and suit Thomas Frank's way of playing. Because as we saw, certainly in that Luton game yesterday, there was a real lack of fluidity. I won't get too much into it now, but there's a real lack of fluidity, certainly going forward. A little bit in the Wycombe game, we saw it, but both Wycombe and Luton, that, you know, we're not perfect going forward yet. Obviously, it's very early days, but adding someone like Eze into you know, the weaponry that you have going forward could be a really, really, really exciting deal. But basically, Spurs have to act. Spurs have to act quickly now. This is something that's, you know, it's taking too much time. They are spending way too much time on deals that, you know, like Gibbs-White. I'm hoping that they've been doing business in the background, because for a multi-billion pound company and operation and everything that goes into being a top Premier League football club, you have to be able to do more than one thing at once. And so maybe Paulinho is the one they go for. I've been, you know, quite vocal about it before. I'm not sure Paulinho is what Tottenham need. I think yesterday showed that again. I think Gibbs-White would have been absolutely perfect for what Tottenham are trying to do. But obviously, sadly, that's not happened. The whole situation probably stinks a little bit. I'm not gonna get into that and accuse anyone at Forest of anything, but, you know, it doesn't maybe sit right with any of us. But it's disappointing. It's a really disappointing sort of bit of news for Tottenham, because it looked like we were starting to take shape, and if Gibbs-White had come in and, you know, made an impact, he could have been a really top player for us. So it's a shame. It's a real shame, because, you know, in that 48 hours we saw us sign Kudus, get the here we go for Morgan Gibbs-White, rumours of investment. Romero is apparently signing a new contract, and since then, which was 17 days ago, it has been deadly silent, and that's a problem, given that, as I say, we go on tour. The flight leaves in 3 hours and 50 minutes, and we have got one new face that's going to make an impact now on that plane. Takai might end up shocking me and coming in straight away, but given how Voskovic looks as well in pre-season, got Van der Ven, Danso's looking good, Romero's obviously there, I don't see Takai making much of an impact too early on. So in terms of players that are brand new, that are going to make an impact now, we have one. And that, given, obviously Tell's a great deal, and I'm really excited about Tell, but given we've seen Chelsea are making some great moves, so are Liverpool, City have, Arsenal have signed 6 players. We've got to be better. We've got to be quicker. Tottenham have got to do more, because they're running out of time. And then people will start talking again. People will start having conversations that, you know, about the ownership, which never go away, of course. These conversations never do go away, but they only grow and only add fuel to the fire when things are going badly, and when the board do seem to be letting down a manager. And as of right now, they are not backing Thomas Frank. They've brought Thomas Frank in for this long-term project. They've just got Champions League money. They've just won a trophy. This is the chance to go. We've got that monkey off our backs, and now we're going to progress. And they aren't progressing, and it's quite a sad sight at the moment. They've got to wake up, and I'm hoping that whether it be Eze, Harvey Elliott, someone completely different, they still probably need another midfielder other than an attacking one if they're going for that sort of type. Because Gibbs-White, I thought, could play that double pivot, whereas I'm not sure Eze and Harvey Elliott could. So if Eze or Harvey Elliott were to come in, or someone like that, or Paqueta maybe even, I've seen mentioned, then they need to go for probably a 6 as well. Someone that's a passer, someone that can break the lines. Angelo Stiller is a top example. I mentioned him a little while ago on here, that I think he's a great player, could make a really big impact. Adam Morton, Belaber, obviously the real dreams as well, and would probably cost you a lot more than Angelo Stiller. I think Stiller would probably cost you between 50 and 60. But yeah, that's the lowdown for the Gibbs-White news in the last sort of 24 hours, probably less than that, maybe sort of 15, 16 hours. It's obviously very, very disappointing. I'm disappointed. I'm sure most of you are as well, that it has certainly taken this amount of time, and that it was run its course, and it's not happened. And that's very disappointing, because we probably all were very excited about the prospect of Gibbs-White being at Tottenham, and it's a deal that's not happened. Let me know your thoughts. What do you think? Are you pleased that Gibbs-White's not happened? Who do you want to replace him? Yeah, let me know down below. And me and James will be back at some point to talk about the Luton and the Wycombe friendlies of yesterday. We'll analyse the tactics properly and how we didn't win both games and why we didn't win both games. So let me know, one, if you want to see that, and let me know who you would sign instead of Gibbs-White. Who are your 3 big targets for the rest of the summer, for the rest of the next month, because we haven't got much time left. Who do you want to see Tottenham sign? Who do you want to see Daniel Levy dip his hands into his pockets and go out and buy? Let me know. Thank you for watching. And as always, come on, you Spurs.